Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. Today we've got some new stuff for the ramp truck. Some new old stuff for the ramp truck. I've talked about how I've been looking for mirrors for it, and although I did have some suggestions, nothing that really caught my eye and made me just giddy with excitement. But these did, because I've been scouring the eBays for new old stock mirrors. So what I ended up finding was some new old stock Bodywork 3-point mount designed truck and van mirrors in white with metal and stainless brackets. I think this back piece is still plastic, but it is at least not plastic chrome. And honestly, I don't even know if it's plastic or not yet. But yeah, these are quite old. I don't know how old. Do they have any kind of date on them? Probably not. From Shelton, Connecticut, 1983. 1983. What's crazy is that these are from 1983, and that's still like 15 years after this truck was made, or more than that. A long time. So they're like, they're very old, but they're still newer than the truck. That's pretty wild. Let us go ahead and open one of these up. This is an unboxing channel now. That's got to be its own, like, category, right? That's got to be its own thing of, like, unboxing things from 1983. I bet you if I just titled this video as that instead of, like, ramp truck project, it would get a lot more views. Okay. So it does come with hardware, quote unquote, but they're just kind of like not even self-tapping metal screws. I'll probably use those for today, but I think I want to do something else to mount them. If they even work. I'm not even sure if they're going to work. They weren't terribly expensive. It's not like they were, you know, asking a ton of money for these because they're old. No, they were less than what the new mirrors cost. But you can see once we get rid of the old plastic, they're pretty much in good shape. So you'll notice we got 4 holes in the door there where the old mirrors were. That one was completely busted, basically. The new ones should go about here. I'm probably going to do some bending. Yeah, probably. Well, I mean, they could go way down here, or I might just need to do some customization to these. So these are not like one size fits all. They're kind of one size can be bent and modified to fit some. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. So let's just close this up in here. Try to get it approximately there. This should have been pretty easy, I would think. Unfortunately, I think that paint's going to break on them. I'm going to end up repainting these anyway, I'm sure. I only got them because they were cheap. All right, so that's got the bottom bit looking a lot better. Now I need this bracket up here to be a little bit better. I'm hoping that I can just bend that over at the 45-degree angle of the door, and that will get us close enough to parallel, because I don't really want to have to extend that. This is just thin metal here, so I'm just going to use a pair of pliers. Bend it out. Let's see how we did. Yeah, I think that has the potential to work. I don't love the way it fits, but I like it enough, and I like the cost, and I like to be able to see behind me, and I think that's enough like. No falling. No falling. I'm watching you. No falling. No falling. Well, shoot dang diddly, I think that's a job done right there. I'm pretty happy with that. That ought to last us a good 20 years. All right, well, a mirror won't do us any good if we can't see out of it. Like that one. How is the positioning over here? It's certainly far enough back. It's actually, I would say, too far back. I think that could go forward another 2 inches or so. And it's certainly not at the right angle now, since I'm currently looking at the side of the 240. That's probably not where I want to see. Well, all right, I think we got it at the angle we would need now to where I can see the back of the truck. But that is kind of a silly place for it. I feel like it could definitely go much further forward, which is good because it looks real dumb from the outside. From the front, that looks okay, but from the sides, ignore the masking tape. That's just so far back. That looks real silly, especially since it has to be at such an angle in order to see the actual bed of the truck, which is what I primarily need to see. Primarily what I need is to be able to see right along this side here. All right, I think that looks better front to back wise. Let's see how it looks from inside the truck. All right, so now I've run into where the quarter window is blocking it a bit. Certainly would need some adjustment in order to see the bed. All right, that's not bad. I can see the edge of the bed pretty well. And it certainly is blocked a little bit there by the quarter window, like bracketry or framing, but it's functional. And if that's where it looks good, we could probably go back another inch and solve most of it being blocked. I would say that looks pretty okay front to back wise visually. Obviously it's not, it seems like it's a little bit tilted and whatnot. The idea of the mirrors being out further is probably crossing a lot of people's minds. Why don't you have them, out here like I see in a bunch of trucks, or the ones that go, up to the top and are big? Well, we've talked about it. The garage door, very narrow, and with this design, I can still see the line of the bed. I can see this blind spot against the bed, and most importantly, I can see the butt of the bed, so when I'm backing up or trying to get into the garage door, I don't hit anything. And it's certainly more mirror than it used to have anyway. I'm not a big fan of the way it looks so angled, so what I may end up doing is putting it out here and putting one of those like bubble mirrors in at the bottom so that I can see the bed okay, but I don't have to have it at such an angle. And then the main mirror would be seeing more of like the other side of the lane or, traffic beside me, stuff like that. But I think that's roughly where the mirror will live. So I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and screw these into place right now. I don't really like the idea of this hardware. Like, these would just, absolutely be screwed into the door and use the sheet metal to hold them in place, and I don't think they're even stainless. I don't know if you can tell, rust has been a problem with these doors in the past. I don't like the idea of causing more of that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to Rivet Nut these 3 mounting points for the mirror, and that way I can nicely seal the back of the Rivet Nut. Rivet Nuts just seal a lot better anyways, and it should look a lot cleaner. It's going to make the mirror stand off the door a little bit, so there might be a gap around it, but I think I'm okay with that. But you know what? For super cheap NOS stuff from eBay, I'm glad I went this route because there's no fear in it for me. Like, I'm gonna have to, bend these up and mar them up to get them into shape, and I'm not bending up anything that was nice. I'm bending up old crap that nobody wanted. So I think that'll be a good fit. Old crap that nobody wanted is exactly my brand. So how about these doors? As you can see, I've started with the rust removal, and that involved basically removing the entire bottom of the door here. I decided to save the lip there, the bump, because I ground down up it, and that didn't make much sense, did it? I ground down up it. You know what I mean. But yeah, I didn't find any rust above there, so I decided to save myself a little bit of headache and not have to try and weld in a panel amongst the flat part of the door. So if I only have to weld in the bottom piece there, it should be easier to hide some crimes. all of this stuff, well, other than the masking tape, that came out of the door and inside of here in the fender, which I still need to get in there and vacuum up. That is what causes the rust in these doors. Really, it's 100% just from the window here. So dirt, debris, leaves, and then eventually rain and moisture fall down through the door, collect at the bottom, plug up the holes that you can see right here. Those holes get plugged up, everything sits in there, and it just causes over time moisture to collect and be up against the metal and causes it to rust. Pretty much the same story here in the fender. The wheel actually kicks up into this area, causes a huge pocket of mud and dirt there, and that's what causes that to rust out with time. If this was a truck from further north, you know, up there in the Rust Belt, as they say, it would be way worse because it would get salt and stuff trapped in there, and that's a real disaster. But honestly, this one's not too bad, so work has begun there, and we'll start fixing that. The cab corner, little bit of a hole there, and then in there there's a bit of a dent as well where somebody kicked something up into there, but I've seen way worse on these trucks, so I'm not super disappointed with that. I'm just going to take some wire wheeling to get the rust out. I'm going to coat everything in PR15, which is a rust converter / inhibitor, and then weld on the new door skins. Bidding is open if you would like this piece of door from the truck. Fresh patina, really, really great shape, and a wonderful piece of history. Well, it's going to be history anyway. I'm done with it. All right, well, it's been a few days since we started this little mirror project. That should have taken no time at all, but that's how it goes. I did decide I wanted to riv nut the mirrors in place, which meant I needed some hardware, which means we're going to throw some metric hardware on this truck. I don't care. And that is because I have a metric riv nut setup, and I'll show you what a riv nut is in a moment if you don't know. But I wanted some stainless hardware to mount these to the door so that they don't get all rusty and gross in the future. Now, of course, like I mentioned before, I'm going to have to do some work on the mirror itself, just in the process of lightly bending it to get it into shape. The lame coating on them that I'm sure probably predates powder coating started to flake right off, which is fine because it's really not the right color anyway. Let me show you. So the color that is on the truck is vaguely the same kind of white that I'm going to paint it. It kind of matches the white that is the wheels of the 240. And it's just, you know, it's a very bright, brilliant white. It's kind of more like that is what it will look like. Well, these are a little bit off-white. I don't know if that's because of their age or that's just the color they were. But yeah, the brackets at least are going to end up getting repainted anyway. But you can see where I bent them, the paint chipped right off. And it's just, yeah, really, really cheaply done. I'm glad that these mirrors were intensely cheap. Oh, there we go. There. Now I don't need to hold the camera backwards or anything. Hi, this is how I'm going to record from now on. So what's a riv nut? A riv nut is what happens when a rivet and a nut really, really like each other, and they become one thing. And if we go over here to my newly organized shelf, the only organization that I've ever seen in any garage I've ever owned is happening here. Like seriously, look at this crap. Look at this level of organization. Who am I? I don't know. And then over here, I've put all my riv nuts into little drawers here. We're going to be using M6, and this is an actual riv nut. And then I have a tool over here. It's in the slip slop scale drawer. That is an inserter for the riv nuts. It's been a minute since I've used this, so I got to try and vaguely remember how this works. But I think we need ourselves a little picture diagram of how this works. Okay, if you're thinking to yourself, I would rather do anything in my life than have some dumb 30-something-year-old explain to me how a riv nut works, here's a timestamp for where you should skip to. Okay, for the rest of you, a riv nut vaguely looks like this, and then there is in here a sequence of threads. So this is the capture thread basically, and it resides a little bit down into the shank. So inside of this, the threads don't start for a little while. And that is because this is actually a rivet. So this part here, this lip, will be pressed up against the thin piece of metal here. Well, the tool then comes in, and it threads down into the threads, the capture threads of the rivet nut. The tool works just like a rivet gun, and the basic premise there is it's going to grab these threads, and as you pull down the handle, it pulls this up, and that action crushes this section, expanding it and pinching this piece of metal here between the metal that you're trying to attach this to. So the ridges around the edge here kind of give it a little bit of bite into the metal, and you certainly want to use a drill bit that's as close to this diameter as possible so that it does get a nice bite into it. But that is the basic premise of a rivet nut. The advantage is, other than obviously looking a lot better than this kind of stuff, these are just a coarse thread screw. They go into the metal and they're gonna bite down into it. But over time, they're going to rattle loose, and these are going to get loose, and then water is going to start to get beyond that. This is essentially just a regular wood screw. Versus these, this is a machined thread in here. I'm going to be using a nice cap nut stainless bolt for it, and that should provide a nice watertight-ish seal. I wish I had stainless rivet nuts, but these zinc-coated ones will probably do. And I'm going to put a little bit of RTV or sealant around the edge of them so they don't leak in the future. But that is a rivet nut. So on the tool, you see that I threaded the rivet nut on, and then as I close on this, this will be pulled back. That will pull this together, and if there was a piece of metal to get hung up right now, it would be pinching that together. I would show you, but I don't have a lot of these, and I don't want to waste one. Imagine it, though. So now the question of where. I left marks here the other day of where I had it, and I think I've decided that I want to go a little bit further back than that. So I'm going to go pretty much in line with the screw holes of the back of the old mirrors. So somewhere right around there. And I think that'll be a nice balance of far enough back that it's not blocked and far enough forward that it still looks cool, because that matters. So now what I'm going to do is make myself a mark for this screw hole. I'm going to go ahead and do the rivet nut on this one first, and then we'll worry about these two once we get that one in place, and I know for sure that I'm happy with it, because fixing one hole, easy. Fixing 3 holes, a little less easy. Now you may notice I haven't really measured anything here yet, and that is because I'm going to replicate this on the other side. This side, what the measurements are kind of irrelevant to me. I'm going to get it where I like it, then measure this door and try to reference those to the other side. What I don't have on me, I don't have here, is a center punch. That's one of the things I need to put on my list of things to get. All right, I have a wood center punch, basically a nail flusher, but it'll do the job for today. Give me a little mark. Now, if I was a dig-dang professional, I would have metric drill bits. That would be perfect, but I think we all know that's not the case. So this one gets us close, but you can see it only fits the inside diameter. The next one up, let's hope, isn't too big and doesn't work for the outside diameter. Because if you go too big, oh no, that's actually pretty much perfect. If you go too big, it won't clamp in right, and it won't seal very well. And sealing is certainly important for us here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sand the surface of the area where the rivet nut will be, and I'm going to put a little primer here because this is going to be permanent, and we're going to refinish these doors around these rivet nuts, and I'm actually probably going to paint the rivet nuts in place in order to add a little bit of an extra layer of protection against moisture making its way around them. Switching up to the stepped bit. because it does a much better job of making a clean hole. That's a pretty good fit. It could be tighter, but that's gonna get nice and tight once we use the tool. Sorry, I had this scene like super backlit because I had the door open, but I considered doing what I said before and going ahead and sanding that down smooth and then repainting the whole area. But then it occurred to me that's kind of pointless because of the fact that it's going to all be sanded around it, painted over, and then covered up. So there wasn't much to be gained through the idea of doing that. So I'm just going to make sure that the inside gets paint on it. All right, now assuming I remember how to do this correctly, we should be ready to go. So this will go in, press firmly against the bed or the body of the truck. Squish it down, and then it should unscrew. Very nice. Yeah, that worked. That worked quite well, and that is a super great tight seal around there. I also didn't put the RTV on it, mainly because I forgot. And then the thing I was waiting for, an assortment of flare head stainless screws. And those should be really nice in there. Way too nice, actually. I don't know why I went so nice. Nothing else on this truck's going to be that nice. But it's the little things, you know? The little things that make you think you're really a somebody. Let's see. It goes like this. We should be able to mock this up in place and not have to worry about it falling off anymore. We're not at the mercy of the masking tape. Masking tape, you're back on the job. Sorry for all the things I said bad about you. I dig it. I think it's good. I honestly probably could have gone a little bit further forward, but I think it's at a good place right now. Honestly, I don't have it adjusted at all. I was just trying to get this camera shot. So I'm just looking at it here, and it's actually angled this way just a little bit. I don't know that there's a lot I can do about that. The only thing I could imagine is putting a washer behind this in order to kick this out a little bit, because the bottom side, I don't really end up wanting to bend any of this. So that might be about the best we could do if I even decide that's what I need to do. So now comes the process of deciding what is level. What is level? What's a level? And I think what I'm going to do is measure up from the bump side. This totally accurate and not at all wavy bump side. One thing I was looking out for was Bondo in here, because if there was a lot of Bondo there or body filler, then it would have been a problem in the future for me when I was doing body work here. But because it's just paint, it'll be fine. And obviously the reason I say it would have been a problem is because as I was smoothing around these, there would have been a hill there. And I would have had to try to fill in around them, and it would have been really weird, but not a problem. Thread on the rivet nut. Press the rivet nut all the way in. Realize you didn't drill them out enough, and drill them out some more. And then after you repainted them, insert rivet nut. All right, now if it ever doesn't take like that one didn't, you just screw it in a little bit further. Press really hard up against the door. Give it another squeeze, and you can actually take that even further. There we go. Now it's bottomed out. No need to panic. Everything's good. All right, now the other way you could do this same effect without having, you know, something protruding from the body. Here, let me get you in close so you can see what I mean. So you can kind of see what I mean there about how these protrude from the body just a little bit. The other way you could do this same effect is to just weld a nut to the back side of the metal, and you'll have a threaded hole to screw into, and you'll get all the same benefits basically. This is just kind of a easier / less intrusive way of doing it. Everything has its purpose and its use. You know, sometimes you're tempted to use a tool or a system or a fastener type just because it's cool. And although that has its merits, I've certainly said, you know, coolness factor is important quite a bit. But there does come times when something like this can actually just cause you more headache. And you do kind of have to do that analysis in your own head of, is this something that I really need to do, or is this something that's just going to cause me grief? But I think this was, in this case, something that was fit for the cause. And that looks really good. It actually kind of, as I reattached it, straightened it up a good little bit too. I could still put a washer in behind it if I really wanted to, but no, I think it looks good. And you really can't tell looking at it, especially from any distance, that there is in fact, you know, a little bit of a gap behind it. I think it ended up pretty good. Slightly concerned that this one ended up looking lower, but I think what it is this piece is actually longer. I think there's more bracket material below the screw hole than on this side. That's something I could fix in the future if I really wanted to. I really doubt I will. All right, so now to replicate this on the other side, and I won't drag you through that whole journey. We'll just go ahead and do it. But in comparison, new mirror, old mirror. I think it actually protrudes about the same distance overall, maybe even a little bit less. I kind of want to measure now. It's a foot from the window, 13.5 inches from the window. So we actually have gained, in total clearance with both mirrors on, we'll have gained, what, 3 inches? Not bad. We'll see if it fits through the door in the end though. All right, well, I think they passed the looks test with flying colors, at least for in here. I want to try and get it outside, though, and we'll have to see if it makes it outside or not. Looking at it visually, I think I'm probably going to have to fold this one in to get out, but we'll see. Oh, that is so much better. I like these a lot. I'm really happy I went for tall instead of wide. I think that the height is exactly what I needed. It's so helpful already. Used to do this blind. You know how many times I've hit those marker lights already? I'm gonna try and get to the back axles here. There we go. Now the moment of truth. Do we have to fold them in? I think we can make it without adjusting. Now the antenna, not quite. For the mirrors, we're good. That's a whole new experience, let me tell you. So much nicer. Mirrors. Who would have thought? A good invention. All right, well, these just need to be tightened in place wherever I feel like it's a good place for them. And I think we are good. That was a good purchase for very reasonable money, and I think they'll be perfect for the job. And it's just really nice to be able to see the back of the bed when I'm getting into this place. Oh, and the cars around me too, I suppose. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today. Not the most thrill-seeking adventure, but it's kind of the landmark beginning of Bodywork, as you saw with the door stuff. I'm waiting for a little bit more stuff to come in for that, but there will be plenty of live streams of working on the metal work of the truck, so make sure you're following on Twitch for that if you want to see that stuff. Thanks as always for watching. Thanks to all my patrons for support, and I'll see you next time.